The Morgan Report with David Morgan.
David Morgan with you from themorganreport.com. And it is Friday, the 27th of November, 2020. So this weekly perspective, I'll start with the markets as you usually do. Interesting, the dollar has dropped to a 2-year low, and it looks like it is going to continue to drop. What's interesting about that is that gold is also getting hit pretty hard today and has been for the last week or two. And of course, a lot of people believe they move opposite. They do, they're correlated negatively, but not as much as the stock market. And the stock market, of course, is hitting all-time highs. And coming back to the dollar, what's the inverse of that? More than gold, foreign stock index is hitting a new record as the U.S. dollar continues to plunge. The Dow Jones Industrial Average reached 30,000, and that is a new record. As you know, the S&P wasn't far behind, and it's in a coiling pattern at the present time, which does favor moving higher, which would mean possibly it will also break into new all-time record highs. The NASDAQ Visa, the QQQ, is also not at its record, but getting close, and most likely will continue. The banks actually have had a bit of a struggle here for a while, gone sideways, are starting to move up. And basis technical analysis, they've actually moved up. And finally, what we haven't seen in a long time is what the small cap Russell 500 has done. And it is on the move as well. So lots of shifting in the stock market, actually, not only making a new record, but seeing where the money is changing flows from certain sectors into another. And lastly, as I reported, I think a week ago, I said that oil has been really a poor performer this year, but it was the best monthly sector, I believe. Last week I reported that. And it's actually gapped higher on the XLE if you look at the chart, which means a lot of buying pressure. Again, one day doesn't make a market, but it's interesting to see what the oil sector has done from, let's say, November 1st until basically the end of November. Well, first up this week is from Technocracy News and Trends. This is from a colleague/friend, Patrick Wood, who I met. He used to live in Coeur d'Alene, which isn't too far from where I am sitting. And just to get somewhat political, I really like to stay out of the debate. But as I've said, I'm an adherent to basically Harry Browne. I've mentioned that on these podcasts before. And as I said previously for new listeners, first things out of Harry's mouth is government is force. And it's not the Biden government is force or the Trump government is force. It's government is force. Having said that, I think we're seeing a lot of governments around the world that are forcing people to do what they tell them to do, even without law, basically mandates or edicts, and yet they're forcing compliance based on something that isn't the rule of law. But I digress. Let me come back to the first up here from Technocracy News and Trends. This is well worth your read this weekend, The Great Reset and the Coming Technocratic Reign of Terror. The editorial comment at the top is from Pat. I'm sure he just put TN editor, which is him. And I think this is a good overview. What he says from the second paragraph here, Klaus Schwab and his merry band of ideologues believe that personal consumption must be cut in half. Private property must be eliminated. All decisions must be made by technocratic managers. You must succumb to transhumanism, the merger of flesh with technology. If you think thoughts contrary to their thoughts, you will be punished. All personal privacy must be abolished. In short, this so-called Great Reset will create a planet of neo-feudalism where a few control everything, and the rest are little more than chattel, barely able to eke out a living. I really don't think that's an overstatement. I'll leave it to you. I like to provide information, my perspective. You can obtain your perspective. I think the best way to get a perspective is to look at both sides and do some in-depth research, do some study, do some reading, challenge your own thinking. I've certainly changed my opinion more than once in my life when I got better information or things changed. I used to think the internet was going to be fantastic. We're going to have free speech forever. We're going to be able to look at both sides. We're going to be able to hear the debate. That's no longer true. It saddens me a great deal. And that's how I see it. You may differ, but that's exactly how I see it. I think many people that listen to my channel would certainly agree with that statement. Well, moving on from the technocracy back to markets, Bitcoin has certainly been in the news and has done similar to the stock market, getting into that new territory. Lots of news, lots of people excited, and then just as quickly it got hammered down pretty hard. Sort of reminds me of what we see in the precious metals markets. So certainly the Bitcoin followers are certainly aware that this market is probably as volatile, if not more volatile, than the precious metals themselves. Where it's going to go from here, I'm not going to make a comment. I do think, it's limited, and there's a lot of interest, and I feel that Wall Street's getting behind it. You see that PayPal's involved now. You see that JP Morgan that said, I think something along the lines, this is my recollection, that anyone in Bitcoin will be fired. And now there's an article about Bitcoin being by JP Morgan. And now there's an article that basically says that Bitcoin is gold 2.0. So a lot going on in the crypto world, a lot of, I believe, a setup to push the whole industry higher. And as I've said publicly and privately, I'll be writing about this in the next Morgan report, what is going on toward the central bank digital currencies and what's the big push all about, and how do they see putting us under their domain even further with the ability to track and trace all payments. And one thing that goes next to the Bitcoin is a question that has come up from time to time, and that is the mining of Bitcoin and how much energy does it take to mine a Bitcoin. And what's interesting is I'm still undecided on this. Obviously, it takes energy. The algorithm requires more energy. I understand that. I'm an engineer, but it's debatable about where it fits. So this article from Science Direct, I'm not even saying it's absolutely correct, but it does ask an interesting question. Bitcoin's energy consumption is underestimated, a market dynamics approach. You can read the abstract. You see where it's coming from. It's sciencedirect.com, and then you could search in their articles for energy research and social science, or probably just put in Bitcoin's energy consumption, and I'll pop this up. On my Twitter account, I asked the question, can you be for Bitcoin and be for the environment? Remember, I'm asking a question. You have to answer it. But this is part of that article with some icons about it. Talks about the carbon footprint. This is with Bitcoin comparable to the carbon footprint of New Zealand. This is the energy usage, the electrical energy comparable to the power consumed of Chile, the electronic waste comparable to e-waste of Luxembourg, single transaction footprints, which I found interesting. Those are annualized, but on a single transaction footprint, according to this article, and I'm not going to vouch for it yet, 326.37 kilograms of CO2, equivalent to the carbon footprint of 723,000 Visa transactions, or 54,000 hours of watching YouTube. That's on a single transaction, according to this article. Electrical energy, 687 kilowatts, equivalent to the power consumption of an average U.S. household over 23 days. Single transaction footprints. And electronic waste, equivalent to the weight of 1.4 C-size batteries, or about 2 golf balls. Find more info on e-waste here. So something to think about. I'm going to try to remain neutral on this debate, but I do want to bring some of these things to the fore. I haven't seen a lot about that discussion. Can you be an environmentalist and can you be for Bitcoin, or are they mutually exclusive? This was brought to my attention from an alt news site that I follow, and not that much. This is not my expertise, but I'm convinced something's going on in the Middle East that we are not seeing in the mainstream news. So I'll bring it to your attention. And I'll just read the first two paragraphs here. The Israeli military bombed eastern Gaza early Sunday after it said 2 rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip. In response to rockets fired from Gaza at night, Army helicopters and tanks bombed some Hamas-owned positions, Israel said in a statement. So it looks like things are increasingly getting tense over there. It looks like some fire is going back and forth, and we'll have to watch it. Again, this is not my expertise, but certainly you're not hearing hardly anything, or at least I'm not hearing anything about it in the mainstream press. And of course, I've said for years, it's a place we have to watch very closely. In fact, I used to put out a docudrama that was sent to me on the flare-up in the Middle East and what it had to do with the oil market and what happened to the currency markets from that point, stock markets and everything else. So as we all know, as I've said many times, the world doesn't run on finance and money and all of that. It really runs on energy, and for the most part, that means oil. So pay attention. And if you want, you can stop the video here. This is going to be a bit of an editorial. I'm just going to show you about the blog, which is all this free information, and you can get on our mailing list for the free newsletter, which basically gives you everything that we do during the week and some offers from time to time. Over here on the right-hand side, there is a worth a look, and this is a automatic savings program. We built this web page. When you click that, it talks about why everyone else is paying a high premium. You can buy silver or gold close to the spot price. This is true, but you want to know the details. Now that we've had a pretty good smash in the metals, it might be a time for some of you to think about accumulating some. This is a dollar cost average program, basically, where you set up the account. It's only available for U.S. and Canadians. Unfortunately, it's not worldwide. But you can read the landing page that we built. And then when you click the Get Started, now that you have some information, I think the company itself hasn't done a really great job of explaining it. Hopefully our landing page at least gives you more information. And you can read, what they have here on their page. It's linked from ours. And then after you are comfortable, you could sign up and not buy anything. You can just start right there and get an account and basically get on their news feed. You don't have to start an account. So I also want to bring to your attention that I've started a new website. This is what I call a PSA. I used to actually do radio way back in college, but not for very long. But a PSA is a public service announcement. You might call it a public service website. It's called The Morgan Millennial Minute. I know that's a mouthful. You can bookmark it. But this is aimed at the millennials. We're building a list here, but this documentary, if you scroll down, so this takes up the whole page. You need to scroll down. There's a documentary here, not very long, but I think you will find very interesting for the millennials. And we'll be putting up more and more content on this for free for anyone, of course, but it's primarily aimed at the millennials. We're going to try to keep it super short, which anyone knows I can be long-winded at times. And lastly, here's the landing page for the Silver Manifesto. That is thesilvermanifesto.com. And I've been showing this, I think, incorrectly, but these are the prices. On international shipping, it's $15, which really usually costs more than that. But there is some profit in the book at $40, so we just eat it and get it to you. If you're international on the U.S. version, we do make a profit. You can read what some of the 5 stars, and you can scroll down. But it is pretty good value, but, I'm biased. We wrote it, Chris and I. You get a little more information on these tabs here. But that's it. It's pretty good value, especially if you're thinking about silver. You're not sure. If you buy that book, you probably for $40 have a pretty good education. I've always stressed, to educate yourself before making a move or whatever, and learning is, really great. I mean, I've been a lifelong learner. It's probably why my life has been, in my opinion, pretty zesty, because I'm always looking for new things, new ideas, and challenging myself, steel on steel. One sword sharpens the other. I'm not always right, and I'm not always wrong. But if something needs to be corrected or challenged or sharpened, looking at the opposing view, as I said earlier in this video. So that's it. I'm at 15 minutes. I do want to wish everyone the very best in these very trying times. And if you find these videos of value, I would appreciate you passing it on. I haven't monetized my YouTube channel ever. And everything I do on Twitter, YouTube, all the social media is for free to try to spread the idea that a sound financial system comes. And when that's established, we usually have a very structurally, let me just say, more favorable social platform for everybody. Honest money for honest people. Dishonest money usually have a degradation in society in a very significant way. Usually it degrades to the extent that that's a sure sign that the currency crisis of the day is taking place. This time it's a global basis. It remains to be determined if the central bank digital currency will usurp the present system. Obviously, that's what they want. I've written about it for months now in the Morgan Report. But just because they want it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. Interesting times indeed. Nothing more powerful than the truth. Stand up for what you believe. Try to align it with what is the absolute, which there's not all that many there, but the absolute is as high as you can get. You can be high on that without any aid. So I'll leave it there. I'll be back next week with another weekly perspective.